La arena estaba de bote en bote, la gente loca de la emoción. Hello, tequileros! Welcome back to the Tequila Princess channel. Today is another Mexico Piece by Piece, and today we're going to Mexico City, la Ciudad de México. As Ciudad de Mexico is the capital city of the country, the offer for entertainment, culture, knowledge, gastronomy, and everything that you can think of is just huge. So I really had a hard time deciding what to include and what not to include in this video. That plus that I cannot be unbiased because I was born and raised in Mexico City. But if you want to learn more about it, let me know in the comments below and I am more than gladly will do another video about Mexico City. Okay, so whatever you are into, most likely Mexico City has something for you. First of all, you need to know that Mexico City is huge. 1,485 square kilometers, populated by 9.2 million people. And that is only Mexico City, without taking into consideration the metropolitan area, which, by the way, when you are there, you are not able to distinguish where the city ends and the suburbs start because it's all together. Therefore, there is a lot of traffic, a lot of chaos, a lot of stress, but also a lot of fun, a lot of energy. It's a very fast-paced kind of life, and I just love it. But let's start with the basics. Let's talk about the weather. The climate is mild subhumid, meaning that the temperatures usually go from 5 Celsius degrees to 25 Celsius degrees. Although I can vouch for days when it can be 30 something and days when it's -1. Mexico City, or CDMX, has not always been called like that. Until 2016, it was actually called Distrito Federal, or DF. So many of us, guilty, still call it Distrito or DF. And the people from there will receive a very particular name, Chilango or Chilanga. In Mexico City, you will find one of, if not the biggest, university campus in the whole world, Ciudad Universitaria of UNAM, Universidad Autónoma de México. And I mean it. Ciudad Universitaria has 7 square kilometers of space for all the buildings that it holds. Just for you to get an idea, the Vatican is almost half of the size of this campus. It was founded in 1910 as Universidad de México, and it got the autonomy part in 1929. It is the most important university in Latin America. Therefore, there is a lot of people who want to become students. But the acceptance rate is super low. They are very selective because they are a university that is public, secular, and free. Therefore, they have to be super ultra picky to accept the candidates, and it has paid off. The 3 Nobel Prizes that we have had in the country, all of them graduated from UNAM. Inside of Ciudad Universitaria, you will find that the vice chancellors, the library, and the faculties buildings have beautiful murals that were painted by the most important muralists and artists from the 20th century. Like, for example, Diego Rivera, Juan O'Gorman, David Alfaro Siqueiros, Francisco Eppens, and José Chávez Morado. You will also find Centro Cultural Universitario, and part of it will be 5 music halls, the most important of them being Hall Nezahualcóyotl, considered one of the most important halls in Latin America. Also the Theater Juan Ruiz Alarcón, Mexico's National Library, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz Forum, and the final piece of the Centro Universitario is the MUAC, the University Museum of Contemporary Arts, one of the most important ones in its category, and it opened its doors in 2008. Another very important building inside of Ciudad Universitaria is the Olympic Stadium that was created for the Olympic Games of Mexico 68, and it has a capacity for nearly 69,000 people. and it is the house of this local soccer team, Pumas. And speaking about Pumas, have you ever heard of the soccer player Hugo Sanchez? He originally played in that team but later joined the Real Madrid and other teams in Europe. He is considered one of the biggest goal makers in the history of soccer. Born in 1958, he was first a dentist, then a soccer player, and finally a sports narrator. I think that everywhere in Mexico you will find a lot of talented people that is just waiting for the right chance to shine and become famous. But if you were born in Mexico City, being the capital of the country, it's more likely that you have the chances and the opportunities to become famous. That's why my list of famous people this time, it's a little bit long. Going from sports to business, we have Carlos Slim Helu. Born in 1940, he is a very important businessman here in the country. He actually held the title for the richest man in the world from 2010 to 2013. Yes, he was richer than Bill Gates for those 3 years. But of course, not everything in life is just money. We need to nurture our souls, and the arts are always a very nice way of doing that. One good example would be the surrealist painter Frida Kahlo. She has been super trendy lately, so I'm pretty sure you know who she is. And we also have the 1990 Literature Nobel Prize winner Octavio Paz, a very talented poet and writer who lived from 1914 to 1988. And Mexico has always been very important in the cinematographic scene. We have Alfonso Cuarón, who was the first Mexican to win an Oscar for Best Movie with Gravity, and his very good friend, winner of 3 Oscars for Birdman and 1 for The Revenant, Alejandro González Iñárritu. And a very good actor and rising producer, Diego Luna. Another great actor, but also singer and comedian from the golden age of the Mexican cinema is Germán Valdés Tintán, who became famous with his role as a Pachuco. Another very important comedian from the Mexican golden age of cinema is Mario Moreno Cantinflas. I want to talk a little bit more about him particularly because thanks to his character Cantinflas, we actually created a verb, cantinflear, which actually means to speak a lot in a nonsense way, fast and distracting without actually saying nothing. Let me show you an example.
Ahí está el detalle. Como yo dije, qué casualidad, por un perro que a lo mejor era gato y lo traía, y ahora de que no y que sí, que a lo mejor ahora ya llegó, pues total, yo creo, ¿no?
And another more modern comedian would be Roberto Gómez Bolaños Chespirito, an actor, producer, director, and playwright that is mostly known for El Chavo del Ocho. And although telenovelas can turn sometimes in something quite hilarious, not exactly comedians, but we have a couple actresses that were very important in the telenovelas. Verónica Castro and Thalía. I have already told you a little bit about Thalía in my top 10 Mexican singers video. I will leave you a link over here so that you can check it out if you want. But both of them, Verónica and Thalía, were actresses and singers. And another impressive, super talented singer was José José, who was also known as the Prince of the Song. And finally, I want to mention Emmanuel Acha, the first Mexican artist to perform in international forums like Las Vegas and LA. And speaking about performances, let's move on to festivals and festivities, of which Mexico City has a ton. Since the beginnings of the last century, Mexico has been very involved in cinematography. Therefore, we have several film festivals. Like for example, the Independent Film Festival, the Mexican Film Tour, the International Experimental Cinema and Video Festival, the International Contemporary Cinema Festival, and I also want to tell you about Cineteca Nacional, which is a film archive and projection room with a very interesting selection of films, from the most commercial and popular ones to the most alternative and artsy ones. Founded in 1974 and remodeled in 2012, if you are into cinema, is definitely a must. We also have Palacio de Minería International Book Fest, which takes place in one of the many beautiful buildings that you will find in Centro Histórico, the downtown part of the city. And we have, of course, a fashion week, because being the big capital cosmopolitan city that we are, fashion is everywhere. And we want to show the world what we have to offer. Have you ever heard talking about MUTEC? It is an exhibition, a festival that is focused on the audiovisual acts coordinated with sound design. It's impressive and super interesting. And speaking about sound, there are two music festivals that you need to go to if you are in Mexico City. Vive Latino started in 1999, and it is not only focused on music, although it's the biggest part of it, but also film and arts. You will have 2 full days of incredible music from all over Latin America. On the other hand, we have Corona Capital, which is also a 2-day festival, but this time with international artists from all over the world. We're talking about people on the likes of The Strokes, Billie Eilish, or Interpol. I also want to tell you about International Contemporary Art Fest, also known as Zona Maco, where 90 international galleries come together to show us the best of contemporary art. But now I want to switch for more conventional, traditional festivities. Later on the year, we will have the Mexico's Independence Day on September 15th and 16th, which is of course a huge party for the whole country. But if you want to go to the biggest celebration, you need to go to Mexico City, more particularly to the Zócalo, which is the plaza that is right in front of Palacio Nacional, the presidential residency. If you want to learn a little bit more about this celebration, I will leave in the description box the link to last week's video where I talked a lot more about it. And moving on, we have Día de los Muertos. Let me tell you a fun story about it. Back in 2016, the famous James Bond movie Spectre showed a Día de los Muertos parade in Mexico City. A lot of tourists were gonna come to the city and expect to see a parade. The problem is, we didn't do that. That is something that they made particularly for the film. So we created it. Ever since then, we have been doing this beautiful International Día de los Muertos parade with beautiful floats inspired in the Mexican Día de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, which is on November the 2nd. So if you're coming to Mexico City soon, you might want to take that into consideration and see the parade. And after that, in December 12th, we have El Día de Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, which is the Mexican apparition of the Virgin Mary. During this day, you will find a lot of processions going to Basilica de Guadalupe, which is in the whole world the second most visited building dedicated to the Virgin Mary. With approximately 20 million visitors per year, 9 of those millions will arrive on December the 12th. If you decide to visit Basilica de Guadalupe, don't forget to visit the small temple in the top of the hill, Templo del Cerrito, which is the place where it is believed that the Virgin Mary appeared to an Indian guy named Juan Diego. That is actually how the Guadalupana tradition started. I want to tell you about Christmas in Mexico City, because you see, the city is so big that you will find Christmas lights and decorations all over the place, particularly, of course, in the downtown area. I remember growing up, go with my parents on the car and take a tour at night just to go and see the lights. It was magical. But more recently, you need to go to the area where the Secretaría de la Defensa Nacional, the National Defense Ministry, is located. It is near Polanco, and you see this area has so many lights and the decorations are so beautiful that it makes you feel something magical and super Christmassy. Okay, and right after Christmas, we have another celebration that is not that the rest of the country doesn't celebrate it, but it is kind of particular from Mexico City, which is Día de los Reyes Magos. And it is tradition for the kids to write a letter for the wise king to bring them toys and gifts. And this letter is usually delivered with a balloon. I know it's not exactly eco-sustainable kind of tradition, We're working on that, but that's the tradition so far. And that day, we will have this bread that looks like a wreath that is decorated with sugar and other confections, and it has little baby Jesus of plastic or ceramic hidden inside of the bread. And this tradition is kind of tied together with the tradition of the February 2nd, Dia de la Candelaria. Why? Well, if you get the little baby Jesus figure in your rosca, you will have to pay tamales for everyone that was there on February the 2nd. On this date, Dia de la Candelaria, a lot of people will go to the church to present a little figure of the baby Jesus dressed in very colorful and creative clothing to be blessed. And after that, we're gonna be having the tamales that the person that got the baby Jesus on the Rosca de Reyes is gonna be bringing for everybody. And speaking about churches, of course, that one of the many things that you have to see is Mexico City's cathedral, a huge and beautiful building that you will find in Centro Histórico. You see, Mexico City has a lot of beautiful architecture. Modern, colonial, pre-Hispanic, whatever you can think of, most likely we have a sample of that kind of architecture. Therefore, I wanted to tell you of a few places that you need to go to if you are into architecture, like me. Of course, Centro Histórico must be the point to start, where you will find incredibly beautiful buildings like the cathedral itself, and of course, right next to it you will find Palacio Nacional, or in another one of the corners of Zócalo you can find El Gran Hotel de México. You have tons of beautiful buildings over there, like Palacio de Correos, La Casa de los Azulejos, the Latin American Tower, Antiguo Colegio de San Ildefonso, or of course, the masterpiece Palacio de Bellas Artes. But I will be telling you about it later when we talk about theaters. Close by, but not exactly on the Centro Histórico, you will find Monumento a la Revolución, that currently holds the Museum of the Mexican Revolution. It is a beautiful 67 meters tall arch kind of construction that with the Amaneceres Monumentales monumental sunrise, you can see the sunrise from the tallest part with some delicious bread and hot coffee or cocoa. And for going from Centro Histórico to Monumento de la Revolución, you will have to take Avenida Reforma, which is in itself an impressive contemporary architecture stroll. You will see a lot of skyscrapers, like for example Torre Mayor, which was until 2010 the tallest building in Latin America. Currently we have at least 3 more buildings that are taller than that one, and there are many others that are also in project. If you are into Art Deco, you need to go to Colonia Condesa, which used to be the racetrack of the city. Actually, the street Amsterdam, it's exactly where the racetrack used to be. And on that street, there is my personal favorite Art Deco building in the city, Edificio Tehuacan. It's beautiful. But just walking along all Amsterdam, you will find so many beautiful Art Deco buildings, fountains, and of course, Parque México, where you will find an open doors theater, which is also on the Art Deco style. Let's go back to Palacio de Bellas Artes. Now, this building in particular is a little bit of everything. It's a theater, it's a museum, it's an opera house, and it's a beauty in itself. It was commissioned in 1910 by Porfirio Diaz, but because of the Mexican Revolution, the construction was kind of held off for a little too long. Officially opening in 1934, we will find inside 2 museums. The Museo Palacio de las Bellas Artes, that includes the 17 murals that we can find in different parts of the interior, and the National Museum of Architecture, that has different changing exhibitions all the time. But the main attraction, of course, is the theater itself, that is beautifully decorated inside with a stained glass dome in the top, and the curtain was designed to contain a fire in case of need. And it is decorated with over 2 million 2 by 2 centimeters crystals with a design of the house Tiffany. It was designed in France and armed here in Mexico. I would say that Palacio de Bellas Artes is one of the most representative buildings of the city. And also in Centro Histórico, you will find the city theater Esperanza Iris. She was the queen of the operetta, and she was also the person responsible for the construction of this theater in 1918. In that time, it was called Teatro Xicotencatl. Another very important theater would be Teatro de los Insurgentes, in the south part of the city, kind of a little bit far, but it's definitely worth it. You will see right in front of the theater an impressive mural that was made by Diego Rivera, but it was not painted. It was created with Italian mosaic tiles, and it's very impressive. Now, the next theater that I want to talk about is not exactly a theater, it's an arena. Better known as the Lucha Libre Cathedral, Arena Mexico is the place to go for a wrestling match. As you probably already know, Lucha Libre is a sport that was born in Mexico, and it is a beautifully choreographed wrestling match that will entertain kids and adults the same. It opened its doors in 1954, and it can currently hold 16,750 people inside. And believe it or not, sometimes it's not enough. If you are looking forward to go to one of these matches with the very colorful and bright costumes and cheer from your seat for your favorite luchador, you can go every Tuesday, Friday, or Sunday. Mexico City has a great variety of museums that you can visit. Yes, we are the second city in the world with the most quantity of museums. With over 160 museums, I'm pretty sure that whatever you are into, we have a museum about it. One of the biggest and most important museums is the National Museum of Anthropology and History. With an extension of 70,000 square meters, 30,000 of those are destined for the 22 permanent exhibitions that they have, which holds several of the most important pieces from the pre-Hispanic cultures of Mesoamerica, like for example, La Piedra del Sol, better known as the Aztec calendar, the monolith of Tlaloc, and the also very famous Coatlicue. It also has 2 rooms for temporary exhibitions and 3 auditoriums. Speaking about the Aztecs, right in the heart of the Centro Histórico, you can find the Museum of the Templo Mayor, which was the most important ceremonial center of the Aztec culture that was ruling the area before the Spanish came. For them, it was known to be the center of the universe, and that's the place where they worship 2 of their most important deities, Tlaloc, the god of water, and the god of gods, Huitzilopochtli, which was the god of war. You can see there the ruins of the old temple, and you can also find a huge replica of the stone carving of the goddess of the moon, Coyolxauhqui, who was the sister of Huitzilopochtli. Another very interesting museum is, of course, Casa Azul de Frida Kahlo. The house belonged to Frida's family since 1904, and it was turned into a museum 4 years after her death. That's where she used to paint her very exotic and surrealistic paintings, and that's also where she lived with Diego Rivera during the time that they were married. And another museum that might not be one of the biggest of the city, but it holds a very special place in my heart, is Papalote Museo del Niño. Although it is focused on children, it's a place that you can enjoy even if you go as an adult by yourself. But of course, your children will have lots of fun. The idea behind this museum is to touch and play with things so that you can learn about them. You can also find there the projection of many movies. Some of them are even 3D in this IMAX screen that with its 24 by 17 meters is one of the biggest in its kind in the whole world. I could continue talking about museums the whole day because there are just way too many. Like for example, the Museum of the Perfume, the Museum of the Shoes, or the Museum of the Spoken Portrait. Some of them are super weird and super random, but all of them are super interesting. If you want to see the complete list of all the museums that there are in the city, I will leave you a link in the information box so that you can check them out. We cannot talk about Mexico City without talking about Chapultepec, a beautiful and gigantic park in the middle of the city. It is 2 times as big as Central Park. It is obviously considered as one of the lungs of the city, and it is also the place where most of the capitalinos will go during the weekend. Inside of Chapultepec, you will have several museums. Why not? Like, for example, the Anthropology Museum is located in Chapultepec. We also have the Natural History Museum, the Children's Museum, the Caracol Museum, the Rufino Tamayo Museum, and lastly, the Chapultepec Site Museum. You can also find a botanical garden, a zoo, an aviary, and a mariposario, although I don't know if there is a word for that in English, but you know, this place where you can find a ton of butterflies in there. And also, some days they organize night picnics. You just have to bring your blanket and a basket, and of course, your partner or friends to have a nocturnal picnic and have a lot of fun inside of the woods. Another very popular spot is the lake, El Lago de Chapultepec. Not only you can rent small boats that you can either pedal or row, you can also attend to the ballet presentation, the Swan Lake, which is ideal because you have the Swan Lake presented on a lake. It's fantastic. I love it. And the last thing that I want to tell you about Chapultepec is definitely not the least important. It is Castillo de Chapultepec, the Chapultepec's castle. It was originally constructed for an important aristocrat from the colonial times, but he died before they finished constructing it. So it was taken by the military, and it was turned into a fortress first and then into a military school. We even have a patriotic legend about this place, the Niños Héroes story, which is the story about 6 teenagers from the military school that gave their life defending the country. After that, it was the home of the Mexican Emperor Maximiliano and his wife Carlota, becoming the presidential residence after that, until 1944, when it was turned into the Museum of the National History. But now I want to take you to another part of the city where you will also find a lot of nature around you, Xochimilco. It is more popular because of the trajineras, which are these beautiful and colorful long and short boats. They will take you navigating with long poles around the canals of the area, where you will be able to see the chinampas, which is a pre-Hispanic agricultural system that even today has no pair. People of the area needed to grow food, but there was just way too much water around. So they come up with this system where you will have sort of islands created on these lakes where the soil turns to be super fertile, where you can grow all sorts of vegetables and plants. For example, today you will find that they produce tons of spinach, chard, radish, parsley, coriander, cauliflower, celery, peppermint, kohlrabi, green onion, rosemary, lettuce, and purslane. Among the trajineras, you will find the flower and plants market Madreselva. There you will find decorative plants not only from Mexico, but from all over the world. Hiring a chinampa has become very popular in the late years for partying in a very Mexican way. You can even have mariachi in a neighboring trajinera, or you can buy some flowers, some souvenirs, and of course you can buy food. Yes, there are trajineras that are dedicated to sell food floating in the canals. Isn't it amazing? And speaking about food, we have reached my favorite part of the video. When we talk about food from Mexico City, there is one very important and controversial question that needs to be answered. With or without cheese? Yes, I'm talking about quesadillas. Yes, I know. A quesadilla is not precisely a quesadilla without it. But hey, I don't know, I didn't make the rules. I grew up with quesadillas without queso, and I love them. Although you can find them all over the country, I would say that tortas is something that you will find the most variety in Mexico City. A torta, it's kind of like a sandwich, but with a special kind of bread, telera or bolillo. And just like a sandwich, you can have any kind of ingredients inside. And speaking about controversial food, we have guajolota, better known as torta de tamal. Mexico City is a hectic place. You are usually in a rush. You are usually very late for something, or traffic is just crazy, so your meals are usually also on the go and in a rush. One way of getting your belly super full, tasty, and easy is a torta de tamal, which is just a basic bolillo cut in half with a tamal inside and usually accompanied by atole. You will find them all over the city. Wherever you see that they are selling tamales, you can ask for a torta de tamal, or if you want to sound a little bit more local, guajolota. And speaking about tortas, there is another kind of torta that is one of my favorites, pambazos. In this case, the telera will be soaked in a guajillo chili sauce before putting it on the pan. You will add some mayo and then boiled potatoes, chorizo, cheese, lettuce, and the other bread. Simple and delicious, and with tons of calories. We already know that tacos are the Mexican food by excellence. We have the very famous, the incredibly tasty tacos al pastor. These kind of tacos are very peculiar. You need to have pork meat sliced in very slim steaks, marinated in a special combo of achiote, chilies, and many spices. And later, with a metal rod, you will start mounting the trompo. As you can see, they will grill it on a vertical charcoal grill with a pineapple on top. Serving tacos al pastor is an art. They will be served with coriander and onion and some sauce. Tacos al pastor are my absolutely favorite tacos. And speaking about my favorites, my favorite breakfast of all times is definitely chilaquiles, a very simple Mexican dish that we usually take in the mornings as a breakfast, but you can also serve it as a side during lunch or dinner. It is very simple. You just need to have some totopos, these fried crunchy triangles of tortilla, baited with hot sauce. It can be green, it can be red, it can be combined. And then we will add some cream, some cheese, some onion, and they are ready. You can also use some chicken or eggs to accompany your chilaquiles. And I want to close the food section with two specialties from Mexico City made with corn dough, huaraches and tlacoyos. Another peculiarity that you will find not only in Mexico City but in the whole center of the country is that you will see corn dough that is blue. Huaraches is kind of like a tortilla, but it's a little bit longer. It resembles the sole of a shoe that we call huarache. They will serve it with beans, sauce, and cheese, but you can also add maybe grilled meat or any other kind of stew that you want. And tlacoyos are a little bit thicker and they have the shape of an eye. But another characteristic that they have is that inside of the dough, like stuffed in the middle, you will find beans, potatoes, chicharrón, or habas. Mexico City is the place where I was born, and it will always hold a very special place in my heart. It is, though, not my favorite state in the whole country. If you want to learn more about Mexico City, or if you want to learn about any particular subject of all the places in Mexico that are not mentioned in this Mexico Piece by Piece series, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will see what I can do about it. And a special thank you to Jacob Austin, who decided he wanted to support my channel by buying me a drink. Cheers! If you too want to support my channel, you can do it by clicking on the link on the description box or by giving it a big thumbs up so that it gets shown to more people. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and to click on the bell to get notifications for all my videos. Our next edition for Mexico Piece by Piece will be for Coahuila, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching and see you next week. Bye!